Hi folks, if you are using the Deus 2 from XP, it's a great machine. I've been using it for 18 months now and I've had a fantastic time. I ordered the standard 9-inch coil with my machine. It's been a workhorse. But lately I've been wondering, am I missing objects? Could I get more depth? Should I upgrade to a larger coil? Well, I took the plunge and went with the 11 by 13 inch elliptical coil. I've used it for 3 days now and I'd like to share with you my initial thoughts. The first thing to note is that the coil is really giving you a massive increase in coverage. I mean, when you overlay the two coils, it's quite a huge difference. So you definitely are picking up more coverage in your swings, allowing you to get more ground, detect more objects. Maybe I'll think about it this way. I'll go through the good, the bad, and the ugly to give you a sense for what I found with this machine. I tried it on 3 different fields. 2 of the fields I had detected before. One field was my own backyard, where the week before I got the large head, I found a wonderful 1746 Spanish Real silver coin in just beautiful condition with my 9-inch coil. I know there's silver here. I found other silver, and being a colonial house that dates to 1790, it's not surprising. The second field is a park. The park has been hit a million times. It was a very popular park, once held an amusement park, and I found my first silver dime on that park, again with a 9-inch coil. The third site was a new site, a new permission. It's a house that dates back to the 1750s. Turned out to be a bit trashy, but I found a couple of nice Indians and a few other relics on that field. So the good. Let's talk about the good and what I liked about the new 11 by 13 inch coil. First was the depth. I definitely noticed deeper targets, deeper coverage, and at least 2 to 4 inches for many targets, deeper than I'm used to with the 9-inch coil. Several things I dug in compacted soil down 6 or 7 inches. One object on our field here was a copper communion token that was down at least 10 inches. It was an amazing signal. I kept digging and digging, and it was laying flat. So, it was something that the coil definitely caught 10 inches below the surface. But when I dug that hole and found the coin, it was laying face up. I put my Garrett pinpointer in, and I still had another inch or 2 on top to the surface of the soil. So it definitely gets good deep penetration, good objects. I also found it very sensitive. So to tiny small objects, I was amazed at some of the tiny aluminum or copper fragments I was finding with this large coil that typically I would find with a 9-inch, but it was there. So no loss of sensitivity. It was very impressive. Battery life from XP, they say 12 hours on this coil. I wasn't sure. I hooked it up. It was fully charged. Went out, spent a good 8 hours each day for 3 days, and no issues with battery life or the machine wearing down. Now, I did charge it each night, but for the large coil and for the extra detecting power, I expected it to consume more power, and that wasn't the case. The next couple things, I guess, are either good or bad. They can go in either category. One is the weight. It was something I was concerned about because there is a weight difference between these 2 coils. And according to XP, it's about 225 grams heavier than the 9-inch coil. And to give you an idea of what that feels like, if you were to take a roll of US quarters, that's about the equivalent difference in weight between these 2 coils. And for the longest time, I just could not get comfortable with the idea of using this coil, the 9-inch coil, for a long period of time with an extra, roll of quarters on top of it. But I will say that even after 6 or 7 hours, I was not feeling the weight. And perhaps it's because of the way the coil is balanced. But at least in these first 3 trips out with the larger coil, I really didn't find it oppressively heavy, which made detecting easy and delightful, really, because I was getting better depth, I was getting better coverage, and I didn't feel like I was sacrificing weight. I just got used to it, and it wasn't an issue. I did also find that I was getting a lot more noise, a lot more signals. I guess I should say signals, not noise. But there was a lot more chatter in my headphones than I was used to for the 9-inch. And that makes sense because you've got a larger coverage area, so it's probably picking up adjacent objects. I've got to get used to that, and I've got to get better at discriminating between good objects and bad objects. I feel like I did miss some objects because there was so much going on in my headphones at times, especially on a trashy site. And I guess it's both a good and a bad. Good is it's picking up many signals. The bad is I really have to readjust to how I interpret what I'm hearing to make sure I get all the good objects out of the ground. In terms of the ugly, I will say that I was getting more iron than I expected. Not huge iron, but generally smaller iron objects and deeper. So I also noticed I was getting a lot more rusty nails and screws and nuts and bolts. Small objects, which is a good thing, but not the types of objects that we're looking for. So, it was there, this plus the additional chatter in my ears, something I think I need to get used to as opposed to something that's a deterrent from getting the coil. Also in the ugly is the setup. I was warned that the coil needs to be paired to the same version as the remote control, and XP is not the greatest when it comes to software. It's the thing that I find clunkiest about my XP experience, although I love the machine. I'm from the software industry, so historically I've seen that companies that make good hardware make lousy software, and companies that make good software make lousy hardware. It's hard to find a company that can do both well. In the XP's case, the updating process, while it's fantastic as conceptually, I find that the software is sometimes a little clunky, and I feel a little bit unsure when I use it that I'm deleting something that's working perfectly fine and I'm gonna create issues for myself down the line. That hasn't happened. And with the XP coil, I did reset my remote control to 1.1 and made sure the coil was at 1.1. And when I went out, everything was fine. So it worked, which is the right thing. It just was created a little bit of apprehension in making sure that I got everything working together and went out on the field. I guess the last of the ugly is the price tag. I mean, it's not cheap for the 11 by 13 inch coil. It's a $399 upgrade. I have to say, if I knew then what I know now, then being before I bought the coil, would I have done it? And I think the answer is unequivocally yes. I do feel it's a new tool in the arsenal. It's certainly a very different coil than the 9-inch. I bought it primarily because at the beach, I feel like I would be more successful in the summertime getting objects at the beach. But frankly, I'm finding it to be a great addition here on grass and pasture land. I'm definitely finding more objects. I got a number of Indians. I got the communion token. I've got my first silver dime with the coil. I've got some 17th century or 18th century nails, a little 18th century fitting for a watch or a mini portrait. Definitely finding more targets. And if you're detecting and you're trying to optimize your time, you want to find more targets. The weight I felt was not as bad as I expected. Therefore, I'll make that trade-off, and I prefer to use the 11x13 when the ground conditions permit it. So if you're like me and you're debating 9-inch or adding an 11x13 to your arsenal, I would definitely recommend going with the 11x13. I'd probably skip the 11. I think it's a sort of a middling coil. The 9-inch gives you the super lightness. This gives you a little bit heavier coil, but as we saw at the beginning, the difference in coverage is significant, and the sensitivity and the feeling that you're getting, true value out of each swing, out of each detecting trip, is worth the investment. So, good luck. I hope you go with the 11x13. If you have one or you're considering one and you get one, leave a comment below and let me know what you're thinking. This is my first video. If you like it, I'll make more. Appreciate the comments. Give me a like, thumbs up. Appreciate it.